all here because we want to have an impact. We might be from government, from a big corporate, we might be a startup or scale-up operator, we might be an investor or an ecosystem builder. But we're all here at this event and in this room because we want to have an impact. We might be focused on the environment, a particular issue around climate change, a particular group, or society at large. But we all want to have an impact. I'm going to spend the next few minutes thinking about an observation from my own experience as a founder, which is that when we set out to have an impact, we ourselves are impacted upon. My name is Hannah. I'm the founder CEO of the Joy Club, an online community for people in later life, and the average age of our customer is 69. And I have always passionately believed in the power of technology to create positive social change in the world. I spent my 20s working in other people's early-stage, high-growth tech startups. I focused in one startup on frontline NHS staff, and in another I focused on new mums. But it was my amazing Granny Jean who inspired me to focus on people in later life in particular, and also to take a leap and become a founder myself. Now, Granny Jean was amazing. She had a very normal working life. She was a geography teacher for a lot of it. She was a very dutiful wife and mother, and she put everybody else first during her life, and she came second, until she got to retirement. And she just thought, do you know what, this is my time. I'm going to discover who I am, what brings me joy. And so she went on this amazing voyage of self-discovery. She went backpacking in New Zealand by herself. She went volunteering in Bulgaria. She got into painting and started to exhibit as an artist. And she even tracked down her boyfriend from when she was a teenager. And they reconnected, and they got married at the age of 75, as if no time had passed in between. So they picked up celebrating their 16th birthday when they were actually turning 76. And that was hugely impactful on me because it showed me that aging wasn't something to be frightened of. Retirement wasn't a time that you slow down. Indeed, it can be the best time of somebody's life because you're bringing your life's worth of experience and self-knowledge and relationships to that chapter. And that was a great lesson for me because at that time, I was in my late teens, I was in my early 20s. I was on a similar voyage of self-discovery. And so we became perhaps unlikely adventure buddies, but her with another 4 decades of experience under her belt. And so she was a fantastic and hugely impactful mentor for me at that time. It was also hugely impactful when I lost her to dementia a few years ago. And I wanted to pay tribute to her. I wanted to honor the impact that she'd had on my life. And I thought about planting a tree or putting a plaque on a bench, and those things are lovely, of course, but it didn't feel big enough. And so I thought, well, maybe this is the time. I will bring together my grand's blueprint for a joyful retirement with my tech startup experience, and I will try to bring her sense of joy to as many people as possible in later life. And that thought, that realization was sort of 2019-ish, and while she was amazing, she was one data point, and I didn't want to build a product around one person. It needed to be bigger than that. And so I started to volunteer with Age UK. I started to interview lots of people in later life, spoke to about 100 people within the space of 3 months, so I could understand the common opportunities and challenges, their experiences of aging. And that really was the beginning of this approach of intergenerational co-creation that we've taken forward at the Joy Club. I am not an innovator, I'm very much a facilitator. I'm there to listen, the team is there to listen, and we're building the product and the proposition and the brand alongside our members. And so the impact of that time was enormous. Obviously, it carved and shaped the trajectory of the Joy Club business and continues to do so. But there were some bigger lessons as well. One thing I heard a lot was that these individuals, these amazing individuals, were very surprised to look in the mirror and see a wrinkly face looking them back. One man said to me, I went to bed yesterday, 27 years old, and I've woken up as a 72-year-old. How did that happen? Where is that time gone? I spoke to another lady who was 68 who told me that when she was a young woman in her 20s and 30s, she'd had a fairly reckless attitude towards her personal finances, but that she told herself, when I'm a proper grown-up, I will sort it out, I'll be more sensible, I'll make the kind of financial plans that I need to in order to have a sustainable and well-financed later life. But she told me that day had never come. She'd never woken up feeling like a proper grown-up. At the age of 68, she still didn't feel like a proper grown-up. And because of that, she'd actually never made those sensible financial choices. And she didn't have the finance in place to support the retirement that she'd been looking forward to. And that was hugely impactful on me because at that time, I was telling myself those stories. I'd taken out the biggest loan the bank would give me to go sailing. I mean, I don't regret it, but I had taken out a very big loan, and I had taken out a number of high-interest credit cards so that I could afford the kits and the flights. And I'd even opted out of my pension so I could have a little bit of money left over at the end of the month. And I'd been telling myself, I'm young, I've got a long life ahead of me, and when I'm a proper grown-up, I'll sort that out. But actually hearing from so many people that time just flies by and life just flies by, and hearing in particular from this lady that she'd never awoken a proper grown-up and made those choices, that impacted me. And I went home and I cut up my credit cards and I put a plan in place to pay off my loan. And I opted back into my pension. And I thought very carefully about the pension scheme that I would put in place for the future employees of the Joy Club. And so intergenerational co-creation impacted the business as I had imagined it would, but it also impacted me personally at that time. And I've seen that play out with team members of the Joy Club as they join. It's really interesting because you, as a founder of an impact-driven startup, you attract people who want to have an impact. And that comes from a really good place, but when you're trying to have an impact on a group that isn't yourself, sometimes that can fall into a type of othering. And I've seen that. And there's an amazing guy in my team, and he's amazing, and of course I will not name him. And he was fresh out of uni, Gen Z grad, really wanted to join a mission-driven startup. Our mission really resonated with him. And so he joined the team, and on our first team meeting on Zoom, I invited him to introduce himself to the rest of the Joy Club team. And he'd left himself on mute, and so we all said, you're on mute, we've all done it. And when he came off mute, he said, oh, sorry, that was a bit of a boomer moment. Everybody obviously paused. If we were in a room, they'd looked at me, but everybody looking at me on the Zoom screen. And I don't know if that's widely used in Europe, but baby boomers, obviously the babies born after the Second World War, they're our customers. And so when younger people say, I'm having a boomer moment, it means that they've made a mistake with technology. And the implication there is that older people can't use technology. And in a company where we are intergenerationally co-creating technology with older customers, that of course is not true. We know that to be not true. But that is just one sign of the deeply ingrained casual ageism in our society. Even the people that have decided to join a startup because they want to do something good for this particular demographic, they can fall into that trap. And now he would never say anything like that. And he would, if somebody else said something like that, he would very politely and gently point out how that was problematic. And that's a journey that I see a load of our team members go on. He's really examined their own stereotypes that he's been carrying. I've also seen team members reassess their attitudes around beauty. We had somebody who was obsessed with staying looking youthful, really didn't want to get wrinkly, and was looking into all sorts of options that would help her do that. But actually then, by spending time with our amazing, beautiful customers in later life, she has seen that aging isn't something to be afraid of. Wrinkles are normal and natural, and beauty and youth are not things that can only go hand in hand. I've also seen other team members examine how they're approaching relationships, giving themselves more respect and thinking about who they're going to give themselves and their time to. I've had other team members have a think about work-life balance. There was one in particular, one of our members told one of my team members to get a grip. She said, I think one of my team members was saying that she'd have to work a bit late because there was something that needed to be done. And the member said, get a grip, close the laptop lid, it's not that important. Life is short, life is precious, get out there. And so in all of these unexpected and really magical ways, the approach of intergenerational co-creation at the Joy Club has impacted me and the team, not just on the trajectory of the business, but on some of life's big lessons around money and beauty and love and living and aging and dying. And so over the next couple of days, when you have a moment, I would invite you all to have a think about, in setting out to have an impact, what has the impact been on yourselves? Because the impact that our customers, our members have had on us and they've had on me has been profound. And perhaps the biggest learning of all has been that people in later life are just people in later life. They are us later in our lives, if we are lucky enough indeed to age into that future. And that's been an important lesson for the team, but I think it's also an important lesson for society at large. And that lesson, and getting there through intergenerational co-creation, has been the greatest joy of the Joy Club. Thank you very much.